meditation, I invite you to relax even more and allowing your breath to become easy as you settle in to your sacred center and the living light of God. I invite you to bring your awareness to your feet and feel them connected to the earth. For where you are is holy ground. To breathe that in, that support, that sustaining energy, that divine connection. And imagine the energy of the earth flowing up through the soles of your feet as revitalizing life energy, nourishing every cell in your body temple. And see it traveling up through your feet, legs, torso, neck, and head as a healing light that extends above your head and all around you. And feel or imagine this continual upward flow, renewing, restoring, energizing, balancing. As you too are the earth's life force expressing. And I invite you to allow these next words of affirmation to be the affirmation of your very own heart. I am composed of the materials of the universe. I am one with the structure of life. I am composed of the materials of the universe. I am one with the structure of life. Now bring your awareness to the top of your head and seeing or imagining the radiant energy of the heavens from above gently cascading through you from the top of your head in a gentle flow like a waterfall of light. Relaxing your mind, balancing your nervous system, and easing any constrictions as the gentle flow continues from head to toe. And feel yourself connected also to the heavens. And know that you are heavenly energy expressing. Heaven and earth. I am one. with heaven and earth. I am composed of the materials of the universe. I am one with the structure of life. And let us be with this now for a few moments in the silence. And now, as we return our awareness to this room, let us go forth refreshed, rebalanced, renewed, and rejoicing as we say, thank you, thank you, thank you, God. Amen. Thank you, Jack. He learned that this week for us. Thank you, Jack. Yay. So what a great theme song for the time we're living in, right? Exploring new aspects of what it means to be human and spirit in a time of change. Some wanted and welcomed, and some not so much, right? So we are continuing our series on change and transition and how to be with the changes in our lives in a more graceful way with deeper understanding. And not only that, but to see how to use change as a catalyst for spiritual growth, as a launching pad into new life. So we're looking for meaning in change. That's one of our deepest human desires, is to find meaning in our experience. And our spiritual teachings tell us we don't always get to choose what happens to us, but we do always get to choose how we handle it and what we make it mean, the power and the meaning we give to it. So that's what we're looking at with this series. So how are you handling change in your life? Are you asking God for help or trying to do it all yourself? So think about this week. What's one thing that's changed for you this week? And was it welcomed or unwelcomed? Is there anyone that didn't have anything change this week?
This series I did, and the good news is we got into
All right. Yeah, so to notice, the inflow, the outflow, this movement of life, and to know that we can call on Spirit, we can call on God to help us through every phase of every change. Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, told us that self-observation is the first step to Christ consciousness, right? To observe and be a witness to our lives and this beautiful gift of life that we have been given. So it's been said that we experience today more change in 1 year than our ancestors did in their whole lives. Isn't that amazing? Wow. And that speaks to our wonderful ability to adapt to new circumstances. Call it spiritual resilience, that inner core, going with the flow, creative innovation. We have that ability, that wonderful ability. And the more we can stay curious and receptive to what's happening now in school, a friend and I had the saying that, what is Spirit up to now? When things didn't go as planned. Okay, Spirit, I know you're up to something here. Time to grow again. What are you up to? So as we can stay curious and flexible and teachable in these times, we can move with more ease and grace and move into divine possibilities that are unfolding. So last week we talked a little bit about when we initiate a change, it's usually we know where we're going. We're headed for a new adventure or experience. We want to explore something, broaden our experience of life. When I was 18, I walked into my parents' kitchen and they were baking bread, and I announced, I'm going to Africa with my boyfriend, and we're taking our backpacks, and I don't know when we'll be back. My father dropped the bread pan. My mother said, "Are you out of your mind? What are you doing?" So that was the start of a 6-month adventure overland with a friend who was an experienced traveler, but I was, just graduated from high school, and a wonderful adventure from Cairo to Cape Town, all the way overland through the continent, which grew me tremendously and opened my eyes to so many things and the big world out there and things I had taken for granted at home. So that's another story. So we have this sense of adventure when it's our idea that we want to go and explore, we want to grow. But when it's someone else's idea, or it gets thrust upon us, that's when we can have a little bit more challenge, right? So wanted or unwanted, planned or sudden, how can we do endings with more grace? Because it's likely that we weren't taught how to handle endings. Were you? Was anyone taught how to do that? Endings, when something ends. So, I don't know about you, but when something ended in my house, it was either, okay, that's over, don't look back, forget about it, just keep going. Like, oh yes, we'll come back to that. Like, so glad you got out of there, because look, what could have happened? Or lingering and looking so much at what has been that we are missing the unfolding life and possibilities that are right in front of us. So we may have some embedded beliefs around endings. That if we were taught growing up that when something ended, it was a mistake or something was wrong, or that we did something wrong. So we may have some more things to work with. So we're learning how to see endings as a natural part of the life cycle of growth and change. And to see them through the eyes as an explorer. What is here to learn? An opportunity to explore new aspects of ourselves that weren't expressing before. These are always easier to see in other people, right? I remember my sisters and I talking about our bows back in high school and saying, I tried to get him to go dancing, he wouldn't go, but now he's doing it. Boy, or something, a new part is expressing when we're in a new arena. So I want to go back to our first one. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. You feel the movement of the cycle in that, right? So it takes practice to see this wider viewpoint, because most of us either tend to understate or overstate the importance of an ending. So what do I mean by that? We'll talk about that for a little bit. So we understate the importance of an ending when we ignore its impact on our lives and pretend it didn't matter. And why do we do that? Maybe we don't want to experience the pain of the loss or grief or the change. But those of us who have been around the block for a while with this, we know that when we stuff down the feelings, it's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater, and they're going to pop up often at the most inconvenient times. Will pop back up feelings. And as one person put it, feelings buried alive never die. Pop back up. So have you ever had the experience where you leave a job, a relationship, even a geographical place, and you just move on to the next thing, and you expect it to be exactly the same as the place you left, the people to be the same, the system to be the same, the order to be the same, and it's totally different? What a shock, right? I had that happen in my first church that I took, and I had to move to a new city. And so I left my school I'd been at for 15 years. And that was hard, but I knew I was going to something good. And then I got a new job, teaching job, as well as doing ministry, teaching at a new school. And I expected everything to be the same. It was so different. And I was still every day comparing it. Why aren't they doing it this way? Why aren't, it was so difficult. Because I hadn't really processed how important those years at that one location in my career were, and how big of an impact that change was. And so I would dream about it. Have you ever had that too? You dream about it. So your psyche's working it out somehow. Dream about it. And part of that leaving of the school was there was no party, there was no ritual of goodbye. And that's where rituals are really important in our lives, to mark the importance of the ending, that this is it, thank you, the gifts, to be ready to go to the next thing versus just, didn't matter, just push it aside. So I would dream about being back in my old classroom, seeing my coworkers, and then saying goodbye in the dreams over and over again, these dreams. And then during the day, being in a new place, dealing in this world of reality that I wasn't seeing because my mind was still in the old relationship, the old place. So there's value in acknowledging the impact of a relationship, a person, a place, a career that it had on us before we move on. And I did, when I became aware of that, I did pray. I said, Spirit, please help me to make peace with the ending, and to know all of the gifts that I had on those 15 years there. And then things got easier in my day-to-day life. So we talked last week, there's many layers of truth. There's the physical truth of how you move in the world that changes. There's the emotional truth of it change, that all your feelings about it. And then there's the spiritual truth where something larger is at work to grow you, for Spirit to express in you new aspects of expression coming forth. So gratitude for what was is really important. So to know that understating the importance of a loss is common in our culture, isn't it? where we have sayings like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, or keep your chin up, or just get on with it, don't be a wimp, or oh, doesn't really matter, you know. And in our society too, even with the major loss, such as with the death in our culture, those who hide their grief seem to be respected. You know, keep the stiff upper lip. I remember, you know, you may remember Jackie Kennedy and the children at the funeral of JFK, and people say how brave they were. And in companies, and maybe this is changing now, but in most companies, the standard procedure is to give an employee 3 days off for bereavement, as if you could completely get over someone you love deeply in 3 days. And the word bereave means to tear apart. And isn't that what loss feels like? Intensely when we lose someone we love, but with any loss, we can feel torn apart. And there are questions that we confront with difficult endings, such as, who am I now? Who am I now that this happened? What is real? What is my life about? What is my place in the world? So we all went through a big transition a couple years ago, March 2020. And maybe we're still asking these questions. Who am I now? What is real? What is my life about now? And what is my place in the world? So know that we are all being grown. And we can explore this time new aspects of ourselves coming forth as light in this world. Have you felt that? New aspects of yourself? Kicking and screaming on the road to transformation sometimes. That's another song, Jack. We'll get to that one. So some changes are easier than others, right? Some transitions easier than others. Some we can prepare for in our minds. You know, we let go in our minds before physically something changes. But when we're just hit with a sudden change, boom, boy, all those gears have to turn real fast, right? But you have the stamina and the strength and the spirit to do it. You've done it. You're here. So we have the example of Jesus in one of the major transitions in his life. My mother gave me a printing of this a long time ago. And I love this picture because this is right after Jesus has had his final Passover meal, and he's praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. He knows what's going to happen. And he's praying, God, take this from me. You know, have you ever kind of been literally or symbolically down on your knees just saying, I don't know what to do and I can't stop it. Take this from me. Take this from me, God. So he allowed himself to experience his feelings of grief and the anguish of that. So processing grief is a necessary part of this facing and ending with its gifts and grace. That gives us access to our true self, our full self, and the self we know that can never end, can never be destroyed no matter what happens out there. That Christ essence. So endings and loss can open us up to greater appreciation of the life that we have, what we do have, and the preciousness of it. Are there things that maybe you took for granted in 2019 that you wish you really, really appreciate now? Yeah, that greater appreciation for things and what's important too. So as well as understating the impact of an ending, it's also possible to overstate the impact of an ending and take an ending too seriously. Yes, Jesus grieved, but he got up to face his ending. So it seems like that sometimes, you're just laid flat. Life is over. A classic illustration of overstating the importance of an ending is perhaps the lover who throws himself off the cliff when his sweetheart rejects him. Or the person, the millionaire who jumps off the top floor of the skyscraper. As if that person or thing was the only reason for happiness. And their lives only had meaning because of that person, place, or thing, or circumstance. But we know that that's not the truth, right? There's always more. And aren't there many songs about this? I can't live if living was without you. Oh, there could be a whole soundtrack with that, right?
Many soundtracks.
All of them.
Yeah. So let's go on to something else here. And we will get to that in a minute. So we know that there's more to life than the external condition, and as painful as some endings may be, it's preparing us for something new, for something better. So I think of people who, after a divorce or a breakup, they vow they will never love again. And maybe, perhaps you said that yourself. But the good news is that when we start to deal with the beach ball, the feelings that we put down, they come up and they move. Emotions are energy in motion, and we give them space to be felt and dealt with, and they move on. And new growth and new awareness comes. And we find our strength perhaps we hadn't known before. And thankfully, when we begin to process this healing work, there are divorce recovery groups, grief support, prayer support, classes, counselors, therapists, 12-step groups, recovery groups, all focused on healing the heart. Healing the heart. So remember that even though the relationship has ended, or the job has ended, or you had to move, or whatever change or ending is, that no one can take away your ability to love, to give and receive love. That is your divine inheritance. And no one can take that away. That you have that within you. So how do we face these endings if we don't want to dismiss them or not get stuck in them? Well, here's where we can lean into our faith and our spiritual practice and know that we are never alone, that God is always with you. God is always with us through the twists and turns of life, through the peaks and the valleys. And the spiritual truth is that we are eternally connected to God, to each other, and that nothing can be lost in spirit. Nothing. So we can learn to see endings as a signal that the ground of our lives are being cleared for an eventual new beginning and something more wonderful than we could even imagine. That it's going to show up in its own time and in its own way. right? So there's patience involved with this process, and transition is a process, a multi-layered, multi-step process. So transitions can be a time of accelerated growth when we take time to be with its nature and see endings as a natural process of life. A natural rhythm of beginnings and endings, endings and beginnings, and the space in between. And we're going to talk about the space in between next time. I like this from Jesus. Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains just a grain of wheat. But if it dies, it produces much fruit. So aspects of the self die, so new, stronger aspects are born. The cycle of life that we're in. And we are part of the cosmic dance of spirit and matter and energy in motion, cycles and circles, spinning through dimensions of time and space, from the tiniest cell in our bodies to the largest body in space. All is in motion, in cycles and circles of life. We think of planets in orbit, the Earth's rotation, the sun and the moon, the circulation of blood in the body temple, the cycle of breath in and out and in and out, heartbeat by heartbeat. We are expressions of the dynamic living God, one with the structure of life. So this week, let us go forth exploring the grace in endings, acknowledging the good in what was and that which we loved. That's important. And opening to the movement of new life, dancing our way. Thank you.